What's up, my family? We're going to continue on the road that we've been in the last week. Welcome back to Israel's Movie Reviews, and we're going to be diving into Notorious, the biopic about Christopher, the Notorious B.I.G. Wallace, one of my favorite rappers of all time. And being from Brooklyn, we take a lot of pride in this man, and we're just going to get right into it, man. Even the title of this movie, to me, feels a little underrated. Notorious. It should have been called something completely different, even though he was called Notorious when he was alive. But if we're not talking about the impact rapper Christopher B.I.G. Wallace left on the rap world, not only becoming an icon in his early 20s for his equally cutthroat and poetic lyricism, becoming an icon was nothing but spectacular. Then we're talking about the final days and unexpected death of Biggie when he was shot and killed in California in a drive-by shooting, which was very unfortunate at the time with that whole East-West rivalry bullshit going on at that time. And it was sad, you know. He didn't get to live to see his second album. Rarely do we talk much about Wallace's life as a young boy, as a teenager, somebody who tried to break into the rap game before even being picked up by Sean Puffy Combs at the time, who had faith in him and faith in his abilities. You know, he was a straight-up G, big guy with swag. But we diving into this film because this was George Tillman Jr.'s, not debut, but this was his direction. He was the director of this movie, and he makes Notorious into, I feel, a spectacular movie that lacked just a little bit. Makes a bold attempt at detailing those years, and as a result produces a captivating biopic, in my opinion, one that is built on complete and total devotion to Biggie, with admiration, disgust, above it all, interest in his character and not his rapping persona. Notorious is about Christopher Wallace, the complex, often contradictory, heavy-set man like myself, who came from a solid home in New York to become one of the biggest names in rap industry, and we have ever seen. You know, a shot that he was shot and killed, but he wasn't the cocky type. He was flashy at times because of Diddy. You know, he changed his whole costume, his whole swag, but he had a well-groomed persona about him when he was on stage. And on CDs known as Notorious B.I.G. You know, he's heavily missed. Notorious stars out in humble beginnings, where Christopher was a young kid, kept in line by his Jamaican mom, played by Angela Bassett, who believes in tough love and discipline, which the bad parts of the neighborhood lurking right around the corner, you know, in Best Eye. In the grand scheme of things, even compared to the person who's often brought up in conversations about Biggie, right? When you mention Biggie, you gotta mention Tupac. And Anthony Mackie plays Tupac Shakur in this movie, played a pretty decent role. And Wallace had a very good upbringing. He wasn't a kid of the street, eventually ended up in the street, but wasn't a kid that started there necessarily. Despite living very close to the projects of New York, right in the heat of the crack cocaine epidemic, that crippled low-income areas, Wallace was told never to leave his front stoop. But seeing all the people dealing drugs on the street not far from the stoop, he began to idolize them in a way where he started to aspire to go from a kid on the stoop to that boy in the streets who's a big dog. In his teenage years, Wallace began dealing drugs and collecting a great deal of money to only be eventually kicked out by his mom at the time, who finds a plate full of cocaine concealed underneath his bed. Don't know if that's true or not, but it fit the movie perfectly. Much like Tupac, he left his home as a teenager. Wallace's role models became petty street dealers. You know, believe it or not, a lot of my role models, besides my father, growing up, were the same guys, because those are the guys you saw on the street. They had the cool cars, the cool whips, the beautiful women, the elegant jewelry. You know, you had no choice but to look up to those guys. They were so cool and so humble, believe it or not. Mine growing up, at least. And, eventually, when you get into that life, you see he saw jail time and incarcerations, went and came, which gave Wallace time to write down his thoughts in jail, which turned into rhymes, which were then worked into cutthroat lyrics that only the genre of rap could fittingly handle and accept at that time. Despite this, in his teenage years, he said the streets were my life, while the music was the bitch on the side. He states that in the movie. That all changed after record companies began looking to expand their line of rap artists. Rap was on the rise at this time. And one in particular being was Sean Combs of Bad Boy Records. And he saw an untold potential in Wallace and signed him to a deal. From there on out, it was a road to considerable highs, testing lows and incredible experiences along the way as well, from having several kids with several different women, getting caught up in the bitter and violent East Coast, West Coast rivalry in the rap game, and trying to keep friends close while the going gets tough, right? This movie illustrates these bitter environments through slick black and teal cinematography, colored and coordinated by Michael Grady in an intense way. He brings this film to life. The film keeps this color scheme throughout most of the film, which I loved. And when it doesn't, it captures the brighter scenes with hues of orange and yellow, which make Brooklyn look spectacular. Often showing a beautiful contrasting array of vivid colors. The film looks amazing. It's not only beautiful, it's stunning. And that's one of the ways the film keeps you tuned in to what's occurring in the movie, scene by scene. However, at the forefront of all the events in the film is Gravy, aka Jamal Wooloard. He was a real find of an actor, because someone to play Biggie, you had to have someone epic, and believe it or not, Gravy hit it out the park. He did this with respect, he did it with gratitude, and he served them well. He's a New York-born rapper. He seems to know the environment of the streets well, or at least does a great job acting like he does. He plays Biggie with nothing but conviction, turning emotional scenes into scenes that bear real emotion. And consider when he tries to calm down his long-suffering wife in the film, right? Faith. There's more darker and more brutal scenes into a powerhouse of a performance. And it gives you that feeling. Gravy, likely to find himself unmentioned by the abundance of events and ideas, builds Wallace as a super character. And we can see in the scenes that him and Bassett are the only two that present that she's affected him in such a way that can barely be described, but you can seriously feel it, The acting was incredible, especially between them two. Let's get to the writers of this movie. Reggie Bach, by the Wood, and Chio Hodari Coker. They form a compelling narrative when there could have easily been a shortchanging one. It's a rap movie at the end of the day, right? But you wanted it to be superb because it was Biggie, the king of New York, king of Brooklyn at the time, before even Jay-Z. This was incredible. They really fleshed out the character. They brought Wallace to life. They fulfilled him. They gave him humanity with complex origin, and they gave him style, which we all know Biggie had. With that, they also take careful time to illustrate Wallace as this complex figure that he definitely was, often saying one thing but doing something else. The film doesn't make the case that he was a role model by any means, but it frequently being unfaithful to his girlfriends and children and going back on his word several times in the face of turmoil and uncertainty. But it paints him more as a figure that came to define some of rap's music's core elements. Notorious is a rousing biopic. It's never boring. It's filled with invigorating and memorable music, some of which were performed by Gravy himself, and being very skilled in the writing and directing fields to assure justice was done to one of the rap's music's most charismatic and defining figures. You know, the actors in this movie played, like I told you, a great role. Jamal Wooloard knocked it out as Biggie. Angela Bassett as Voletta, his mother. Derek Luke, who plays Diddy, did a fine job. Anthony Smith as Faith. She looked like her a lot. Awesome. Anthony Mackie as Tupac. Notorious. Couldn't get enough of her as, you know, she's introduced in this movie as Little Kim. And the chemistry between those two, to me, was amazing. They brought them to life, and, you know, it made for a great movie, you know. And, you know, it hit me in the heart, you know, obviously, as I was a young lad when he passed, but I remember watching the parade all the way to the funeral on TV. And every time 112's I Miss You comes on, you know what I mean? A tear comes out. But the movie was awesome. Those were definitely a lot of my positives. The negatives I had with the movie was there were a lot of people missing, like the aforementioned 112. Where were they? You know, Black Rob, you know, G Dep. There was a lot of people that were missing in this movie. I understand that he was in the forefront of a lot of it, but he got to do a lot of music with these people while he was alive. So even if it was a small role in the movie, you know, I expected to see them. But then again, these movies do have budgets, so it's understandable. But this movie goes down as one of the best biopics, in my opinion, of all time. You know, I felt like the movie came out a little too late. It came out about 12 years after he died, but at the time, 2009. But it was definitely well mentioned here. So definitely go check that out. And if you're like me, if you're a Brooklyn boy, you need to go check that out. So if you like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. And if you want more content from me, man, subscribe to the next one. Peace.